Welcome to Michelle's Making. Hope you're ready for coffee, crafts, cookies, and cocktails. Let's get going. Welcome and welcome back to those of you who are returning. I really do appreciate that. Today is National Take a Chance Day, Talk Like Shakespeare Day, to be or not to be, that is the question. National Picnic Day, National Lost Dog Awareness Day, and Cherry Cheesecake Day. Oh, I wish my construction zone was complete because I would probably be in the mood to bake a cherry cheesecake today. But in the meanwhile, we'll have to enjoy some coffee, get the caffeine going. It is French vanilla creamer today, so we'll enjoy that and get to crafting. Our first craft is a messy sign that I was making for my granddaughter's room. I picked up this cutting board at the Arc thrift store while I was in Denver. White tags were half price, so this $2.99 became $1.50. For this craft, we're going to do a reverse stenciling technique. So I created this Bless the Mess decal on the Cricut Joy. Now, I use this smart vinyl. I don't know if you all have ever worked with that, but for this, you don't use a mat. The paper itself is thicker and it's your mat, but it's sometimes a little difficult to weed off onto the transfer because that paper is so thick and you have to kind of work back and forth with it. And as I got partway along, I went ahead and cut a piece of the backing off because that does make it a little easier as you're working along. Once I had the decal onto the transfer tape, I centered it on the board and pressed it on and then removed the transfer tape. Next, using Waverly chalk paint in the color Ballet Slipper and a round sponge brush, using that up and down dabbing technique, I painted over everything with this pink Ballet Slipper paint. Now, I didn't do a thick coverage of this because I actually wanted it to look a little messy and to have a little bit of the board showing through. Once this had dried completely, I removed the letters. After all the letters were removed, I sealed everything with Mod Podge. Next, using some pink and blue ribbon I had in my stash, I wanted to make a little bow to put up in the corner of the sign. And I did this a simple little loop method of folding it back on itself a couple of times. Now here you can see I was tying it up with some twine, and I was also thinking of adding this pearled garland piece to the back. And crafting, it's a work in progress, and you're sometimes trying things that you think might look good and you play around with it and then you don't like. And that's what happened with this. I was playing around with this and I thought the loop behind it might look cute, and the brown and the twiny looking to bring out the board look, and it didn't look the way I liked it, so I decided to cut the loops, and I was thinking of just having it stick out behind it like a little spray, and I didn't even like that. So I took the pearl garland and wrapped it around the handle of a paintbrush just to make a little curly cue, and I decided to use 2 of those stuck inside underneath the twine in the center of the bow. And you'll see as I'm doing that here. And remember the cardinal rule of bow making: every bow needs a good fluffing. And then I dovetailed the ends to give the bow a polished look. I did try the bow on both sides to see which I liked best, and I opted to go with the left side. I attached the bow with hot glue and then arranged the tails so it didn't cover the lettering, which is the great thing with the wired ribbon. It allows you to do that. And there we have our messy sign displayed nicely in my granddaughter's room. Our next craft is a welcome round sign. I picked up this piece of round wood at Home Depot, and using my Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white, I covered about 3/4 of the sign, and it did take 2 coats to give good coverage. Once it had dried completely, I used painter's tape to tape off the top quarter of the sign so I'd have a nice crisp line. And using the Waverly chalk paint in the color steel, I gave 2 good coats to this top quarter section of the round. Once this had dried completely, I removed the tape. Now, I did watch another YouTuber who used a heat gun to loosen up the adhesive a little bit as you remove it so it doesn't peel any paint underneath. There's something so satisfying about removing that tape and seeing such a crisp line. Now, I did want to paint some stripes on this. It's what they call flour sack stripes, where the stripes are different widths. And I decided to go with 3 additional stripes. So I applied the painter's tape, and using my round sponge brush and a dabbing technique up and down, because you don't want it to bleed under the tape, I made my stripes. It is just so satisfying seeing those stripes emerge. Once all the stripes were completed, it was time to add the welcome. Now, I had purchased a set of stencils off of Amazon, and that's where this stencil came from. And again, taped it down and used a very, very light amount of paint on the sponge and a straight up and down dabbing technique. Because this was a rather long stencil, it lifted a little bit in between, so you have to be careful, otherwise you will get bleeding underneath. I did have a small amount of bleed through, and I just touched that up using my white paint. And once that dried, I used some spray enamel to give a good coating to seal everything, and then made a bow using this buffalo check ribbon that I had. Now, I'm including here the entire bow making process so that you can see that. Sometimes I go through the bows quickly and you don't always see how to make it if you've never made a bow before, but you can see here that I ended up using the wrapping around on itself technique for the loops of the bow. And once I had an equal number on each side, which on this particular bow I did 5 loops on each end, and left a little bit in the center to wrap around to make the center loop. And you'll see that here as we go along. But once I had the loops made, counted them out to make sure I had the equal amounts on each side, I did fold it over on itself to find the center. And after making the loop and holding that and folding it on itself, I did snip the sides through the wire on each side, just so that when I put the zip tie through it, it would go in a little further and really grasp the center of the ribbon. Sometimes when you leave that wire there, it makes it a little difficult and it bunches up on itself, and it's a little more difficult to fluff it that way. So you can see here I made the snips, and then I applied or held the tail in there and then applied the zip tie. And here you can see I dovetailed the ends so the bow will have a polished look. And then remember the cardinal rule once again, a good fluffing. I attached the bow at the center top using hot glue and continued to fluff until I got the look that I wanted. After attaching the bow, I decided I was going to add a little greenery. I had this greenery that I picked up at Walmart for I think 97 cents a pick, and cut off the sprigs and then attached them using the hot glue. And I think that added a little something to it. I absolutely love the way this sign has turned out. What do you all think? Is this something you would use in your home? Let me know in the comments. There you have our welcome round. Now it's time for a delicious cocktail. We're going to make a blue raspberry cocktail. This drink is built over ice in a shaker using St. Germain's liqueur, Chambord liqueur, vodka, blue curacao, and just a little bit of water also. As always, the recipe will be in the description box, but you'll add all your liquors and an ounce of water to the shaker, shake until well chilled, and pour it into your chilled martini glass. It's a delicious drink. It's so pretty, the color of blue. And you know, the only thing left after all is said and done is to enjoy the drink. Well, folks, that's it for another week. I hope you enjoyed. Give the video a thumbs up, share with your family and friends, and help the channel grow. I really do appreciate that. We're getting closer and closer to the construction zone being a thing of the past, but we still have a ways to go. Don't worry, I'm thinking about that big reveal when it finally makes it to that point. Work in progress. That's what I always say. Life and home is a work in progress, but we'll get there. Don't worry. In the meanwhile, let's make it a great week. Don't forget to take time to stop and smell the coffee. See you next Friday.